Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Iron Writers reading. A lot of you will remember last month we had our first Iron Writers competition, which was a thing that we have been obsessing about all this year. So if I need to email you and I owe you anything, that's where I've been, is deep in Iron Writer land. So today we have this really awesome thing, and we have a bunch of our Iron Writers coming on, and they are going to read their work from the last month. So we have a nice selection of the different prompts. The prompts are and so last month, what everybody got was 4 prompts. They had a place, a person, a thing, and a sound. And they each had to write a story on it. That was the prompts right there. So it was a street, a nighttime street, a woman with jewels all over her face, a smoky rose, and Fly Me to the Moon by Frank Sinatra. So we're going to hear those different stories right now. And yeah, let's introduce our writers, our Iron Writers from June 2021, and get them on screen. Hello, everybody. How are you doing?
Doing well here.
Good. I am super excited to hear from all of you. We are going to go ahead and start with KR Segriff, if you're there. Can you hear me, KR? All right, we're going to go ahead and let her get set up and start with Barbara, if that's okay, Barbara.
Sure, that's fine. Hi, everybody. My name is Barbara Krasnoff, and well, let me give you a little quick bio. I'm a short story writer. I've had short stories appear in over 45 print and online publications. I had one story, Sabbath Wine, which was published in the anthology Clockwork Phoenix 5 and was a Nebula Award finalist, which is for me a big deal. My Mosaic novel, The History of Soul 2065, was published by Mythic Delirium Books in June 2019. And when not writing science fiction or fantasy, I am the reviews editor for The Verge. And you can find me at either brooklynwriter.com, or you can ping me at Twitter at @BarbK. The story that I'm going to read, I named Let Me Sing Forevermore, which is part of the lyric of the song that was Fly Me to the Moon. And I concentrated mostly on the woman with jewels on her face because A, she looked fairly uncomfortable, and B, I'm a born pessimist. So I was not about to write a happy story. So here we go. And it is called Let Me Sing Forevermore. She walked down the darkened street, waiting to die. All that was left was to decide whether she would do it the hard way or the easy way. The hard way was already working at her, spreading over her skin and eating into her face, her arms, her legs, her feet. The tiny gem-like parasites resembled nothing so much as lovely jewels set into her skin, but their beauty hid their hunger. Desperate to feed on her cells, they spread quickly, replacing healthy epidermis with their offspring. Soon she would be covered with them. They would cover her eyelids, stop up her ears, creep into her mouth. It was already getting difficult to walk. The few gems that had found their way to the soles of her feet made each step feel as though she had hard pebbles in her shoes. The nurse practitioner at the clinic had checked her insurance status, none, and financial resources, few, and had shaken her head. There was a vaccine that worked about 50% of the time, the nurse told her, but it was extremely expensive and rare, nearly impossible to obtain even if you had the funds. Overseas? She asked without much hope. Nobody will let you in, said the nurse. Not now that you're infected. Sorry. After that, the nurse gave her painkillers and carefully instructed her about how many to take and how to avoid an overdose, all the time looking into her eyes to make sure she understood. The overdose was the easy way. Now, outside the clinic, Her phone buzzed with come-ons from services that claimed to have cures and promised access to vaccines in return for a lifetime of servitude. She shut off her notifications, stared at her phone, and in a moment of rage threw it to the sidewalk and crushed with her heel, and left it with the rest of her life, shattered and useless. Then she just walked. The streets were dark and wet. Neon from the few storefronts that were still open bounced off the sidewalks and reflected in the gems covering her cheeks and forehead, sending stray rays of light, of color, vibrating into her eyes. Perhaps, she thought, if I keep walking, I'll be killed by a mugger for my jewelry. Perhaps that will be best. For some reason, she found the idea humorous. Perhaps I'd be eulogized in the newspapers as a tragic victim. Perhaps one or two people would read it. For a moment, I'd be known. There would be at least that. She crossed the street and, suddenly feeling incredibly tired, sat down on the curb. Neon signs flickered around her. People passed her by. She should, she knew, get up and go home. Fatigue, the nurse had told her, was a bad sign. The gems were hungry, and her body was expending its energy to feed them. You have to keep eating, if you can, said the nurse, for as long as you can to keep your sugar levels up. Screw my sugar levels, she thought. She sat on the curb, her arms wrapped around her knees, and rested her head on her knees. Around her, she heard occasional footsteps pass her on the cold night pavement. They formed the background music to what remained of her life. The gems in her cheeks pressed against her arms, impressing their shapes into her skin. Fly me to the moon, somebody sang in a soft whisper. Let me play among the stars. She raised her head. A person of indeterminate gender and age knelt before her, wearing a loose black garment. The robe had no adornment, but it didn't need any. Their face, hands, and neck were covered with sparkling gems. Bright red and blue jewels flashed through their white hair, and something in their eyes shone emerald. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars, they sang. In other words, hold my hand. They held out a hand, deeply encrusted with tiny white pearls, black onyx, blue sapphire. In the hand was a single perfect rose, dew sparkling in its petals. She stared at the flower, enchanted. She'd never seen anything so beautiful. Fill my heart with song and let me sing forevermore, the beautiful creature sang. You are all I long for, all I worship and adore. They extended the rose to her, and she slowly, carefully put out her gemmed hand, took the flower, and stared into it. And with a single, last, grateful breath, lost herself in its beauty forever. And that's the story. And it was basically, obviously, the pandemic had something also to do with it. It was written when we were first getting the shots and when a lot of people were having problems with healthcare. People are still having trouble with healthcare. And so that was basically why I did it. Again, you can find my stuff at brooklynwriter.com or at historyofsoul2065.com. And currently I am working on a new novel, so hopefully I'll have news about that as things go on. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for reading that. I loved when I saw how you treated the gems. That was so unique and original. I absolutely adored that. And now I can say I've gotten to hear Barbara sing. So that's also good. So thank you so much. I shared Barbara's links to her book and her original piece that she wrote that she just read in the chat if you guys want to go there. And next, we're going to have Bryant Laszlo if he's ready.
I'm all set.
Awesome. Awesome. Tell us a little bit about why you wrote your piece and introduce yourself.
I'm Brian Laszlo. I'm fairly new overall, especially compared to like Barbara on the writing world. I've spent most of my life working in social media for companies and dealing with content moderation, that sort of thing. It's really just the last 3 or 4 years that I started wanting to get some of my works out there. I've always been a writer. I just never really tried to get anything published. I've been able to get published in 3 anthologies so far with some of my short stories, some mostly focused around fairy tales, like a retelling of Cinderella, a post-apocalyptic Little Red Riding Hood story, and then an alternate steampunk Civil War history that I created. So those are the three things that I've really gotten published. I think I had a poem in the Space and Time magazine as well. I found Space and Time because I met Linda Addison at the Baltimore convention, the World Writers Con, and I thought she was amazing. So that's how I found Space and Time, and I loved the idea of the whole Iron Writers Challenge. I love having those prompts in a limited time to work on something. So when I saw it, I knew I had to get involved in it, and the story I wrote, I just called the Smile Salon, which is that was one of the things that for whatever reason left out of me in the first picture. I saw that amongst all of those advertisements in the street picture, there was one for a place called Smile Salon, and I thought, boy, that would be a good cover place for an assassin or something along those lines. And so that's how I started working on the story. And then I thought, you know, the girl with the gems on her face would be much more interesting as a client than as the bad person. Bring her in as the client, maybe have her be the driving force of the story. And then the rose just had something a little more. I don't know. The smoke around it made me think something sinister. Yeah, so wanted to work that in. And then I rather than go with the actual song, I just wanted to take the lyrics of the song, and that's why I worked in things like Europa for Jupiter, and I mentioned Mars, and had some of the lines, worship and adore, and that sort of thing. But so here's the story. It's called The Smile Salon. And here we go. There are two universal truths that I have found apply no matter what planet you're from. First, a properly deployed smile is much more effective than any weapons backed threat. It can open locked doors for you, disarm several people at once, or simply get you one step closer to your target before anybody realizes something is wrong. Second, the best weapon is a weapon that doesn't look like a weapon. You may be thinking, you're just saying a smile is the best kind of weapon. I am not. A smile is a tool used for getting yourself in and out of situations, locations, or predicaments. A weapon is used for causing damage. Now, can you use a smile to cause damage? Of course you can, but it's very difficult to actually kill with it. The true value of a smile lies in the setup for the low intensity radioactive pill dissolved in the glass of wine, or the poisonous rose. I have used these two universal truths to become one of the most sought after assassins in this part of the galaxy, a little solar system in which the race of humans, of which I was one of, had evolved. I run a small business called the Smile Salon on the one natural satellite that orbits the Earth. We promise, from wry to seductive, get the smile you want. For those who enter legitimately looking for the smile they want, we offer everything from lip plumping to lip thinning, teeth whitening minerals from Europa to full on reconstructive surgery. Honestly, this part of the business is completely above board, and I could make a decent living doing just this. But when you know two universal truths, what's the point in focusing on only one of them? In reality, a small but not insignificant portion of patrons entering the Smile Salon come looking for the cancer, Callum Catum. They come looking for me. And for 20 years, I have fulfilled the contracts that are brought to me, except for one rule: no kids. Elderly father hanging around and denying you your inheritance? I got it. Mistress blackmailing you? All taken care of. Go back to your wife. Everybody who comes to the salon for something other than a smile knows that the contract will be considered without judgment and fulfilled without entanglements. Everybody knows the one rule: no kids. And yet, she walked into my place of business. She was an Andalusian. I knew it immediately from the jewels encrusted in her body and face, every one of them representing a living, sentient entity that had sworn to worship and adore her for as long as they lived. Every single gem representing a different whole being. There had to be 1,000 of them on this woman. They were all there permanently. They were not adornments. They were part of her now. They flowed so smoothly and seamlessly across her arms, shoulders, neck, and up onto her face that they accentuated the devastating natural beauty which she clearly knew she possessed. This was a being to whom hundreds of souls had pledged themselves to. But she was coming to me, to my establishment, seeking out my services. I tried to steady my voice. I told myself I had done this 532 times over the last 2 decades. But this seemed different. I was intrigued. I could feel myself wanting to do whatever it was she needed. Can I help you? I was proud of how nonchalant and normal my tone sounded. I believe you can, she responded with a smile. I knew instantly that I was in trouble. I recognized that smile. I could feel it already softly chipping away at any barriers that might be between us. Well, in my expert opinion, you don't need any work on that smile of yours, so how can I help you? I deployed my own smile, which she allowed herself to be completely enveloped in, her lilting laughter acknowledging that there were no locks for my smile to open, no boundaries between us. My smile only served to bring her closer to me. Her scent drifted over me, making me lightheaded. I need someone to go away. If I make someone go away, they never come back. She nodded slowly, biting her lips seductively. That's what I want. I knew I could give it to her. I needed to give it to her. I looked into her eyes. Who is it? She tilted her head to the left, pointing to an opalescent blue gemstone at the juncture between her right shoulder and neck. This is Lavishka, a lady friend of mine who currently resides on Mars. And what has Lavishka done? I asked, finding myself nearly enraptured by the curvature of her neck. I thought contracts were accepted here without questions, she inquired softly, righting her head and placing her hand on my shoulder. Without judgments, I corrected her. There are always questions. Very well. Lavishka is a figure of significant import in her circle, and when she pledged herself to me, I made it clear that I was not looking for an oath from anyone with ties to other beings that may conflict with my own desires. Then, now, or in the future. And Lavishka has violated this by getting into a relationship? Not exactly, she said, placing her other hand upon my chest. She was raped. Oh, I was caught off guard. So you want me to have the perpetrator go away then? She shook her head. Lavishka is pregnant and wants to keep the baby. That is the violation. I closed my eyes. I knew what she wanted. I knew her smile, and I knew what my answer was going to be. I just didn't know if I was ever going to smile again. And that is the end of that story.
Awesome. Awesome.
Thank you.
That's one of the things that I love about this project, the Iron Riders, is because such different treatments of the same things. Everybody had the same 4 elements to work with. And right here, we have 6 incredibly different stories. So, and that's kind of the beauty of showing how different we all are. We all think differently, treat things differently. So, yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Brian.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Kate Segriff, who publishes under KR Segriff, and she is the Reader Chosen Iron Writer June 2021. So she may not be happy about it, but she moves on to the quarterlies, so she gets to do it all again. But yeah, welcome. Go ahead and tell us, introduce yourself, tell us where we can find you and everything, and how did these elements combine for you for this story that you're about to read?
First off, can you hear me? Because I'm having all sorts of trouble with the internet. Yeah, okay.
You sound
Awesome.
great.
Okay, good. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I guess where you can find me, honestly, is probably Twitter is the best, which is at Kitty, like the pet name for cat, underscore Flash. That's my Twitter thing. And thinking about the prompts, I think when they were there, I'm from Canada, and we're renegotiating some of the assisted dying laws in our country right now, and so that was really on the mind because I work in end of life care, and when I'm not writing and making films, and so that's kind of where some of it came from, and I was glad the sequins were in there because it allowed me to add a little bit of levity to what would otherwise be a really drag you down story. So I'll just go ahead and read it. And the title is Fly Me to the Moon. Here goes. Goffy has always loved the lottery, but this moon death sweepstakes takes things to another level. Better to pin your hopes elsewhere, babe, Huck says as Goffy's fingers dance across his implanted arm screen. Goffy shifts his ass atop the sidewalk, leans back against the grimy wall, and keeps on tapping. After 60 years together, Huck's is used to being ignored. Not much to hope for in this shithole, Goffy says, and Huck's feels the slight rush of pleasure that always accompanies the receipt of Goffy's attention. Better to send my thoughts spaceward. Huck stares across the weed-heaved pavement to the wreck of a building whose shadow they are sitting in while they wait out the early evening heat. A guy in a semi-clean jacket shuffles past with an empty cart, probably in search of charity credits, Huck thinks, hoping like the rest of us to keep back the sleep squads for another day. Huck's screen pings. He flips his palm skyward and observes the undersurface of his arm. A digital image of a rose appears on his screen. All my love, babe, Goffy says, as his arthritic finger slides across Huck's thigh, and Huck smiles, taps his screen, and returns an image of kissy lips to Goffy's arm screen. At least some things are still free, Goffy says, as he drags the lips sideways and deposits them into his affection bar. Huck tries not to notice the material worth bar beside it. It's easy to miss, as its value is close to zero. Huck's tenure had come through a few years before the country shifted to the Barworth system, so he probably has enough MW credits for another year. Goffy had been the dreamer between them and had been happy to drift as an associate and let Huck's be the career guy. But then they had never envisioned the sleep squads or the possible morbid outcomes of their binary accounting. Goffy catches Huck's looking and swipes left. A holographic image of the moon appears atop Goffy's sun-ruined hair. Maybe I'll go over to Union and see if I can get you some CCs, Huck says. When Goffy broke his hip and his potential rating became negligible, it became illegal for Huck's to transfer Goffy his own credits. Nah, Goffy says, and presses Huck's shrunken quadriceps beneath his palm. You know that well's run dry. It's the moon or the squads for me. Well, just sit with me, Huck's. I couldn't stand it if I were alone when they came. Despite himself, Huck's looks to Goffy's arm and feels a glimmer of hope as he considers the moon's image. What are the chances, Huck's asks. I've been entering daily for 8 years, so I figure I've got it up to about 1 in 8 million, assuming the choice is random. Sorry, somebody's printing something beside me now. Probably fixed like everything else, Huck says. Probably. Why bother? 1 in 8 million? Hope is about getting through the present, babe, and the future is what it is. My days are better when I can close my eyes and imagine myself there, sitting in my own cool patch of moon dust, being allowed to live out my natural span. What are you supposed to do there, while you wait? Anything you want to. Think your thoughts, sleep, read, and everything's provided. And when do you die? And when you die, they release you from the gravity hold and let you go. Goffy grimaces as he shifts his body to face Hux. Goffy's skin hangs from his skull like a windless sail, and his lips have sunken into the crevice of his not so recently vacated teeth. And it's Goffy's eyes, still clear and shining forth from beneath his heavy lids like the twilight of better days, that Hux will miss the most when the squads take him. It's got a good feeling, babe, Goffy says. I know what they're looking for. You've seen the promotionals. Every person there is a spark person, a bit of a weirdo. Nutty professors on the moon. That's the look they're going for, and I've got it. And the sequins? Hux reaches forward to caress the smooth edges of the plastic jewels that Goffy has attached to his cheeks. Well, I gotta stand out somehow, Goffy says, and smiles his old smile. They have just got to be watching, and I know I'm on the short list. But what do they get out of it? I've never understood that. It keeps us calm, maybe. Gives us something to think about while we wait. That's sick. Yeah, but you should sign up. I mean, what's the alternative? I wouldn't be caught dead, Hux says, and Goffy snorts. The man with the cart reappears, considers the two of them, and pushes the cart their way. And when he reaches the curb, the man pulls out a scanner gun from his jacket and points it at Goffy's arm. The moment is underwhelming. Hux and Goffy have lived long enough on this dying earth to know that no good can come of resisting. Hux helps Goffy struggle to his feet, and Goffy brushes his dry lips against Hux's ear. We'll bathe together in the moon dust yet, babe, Goffy whispers. When Goffy is gone, Hux looks to the empty space on the sidewalk. A single plastic sequin shines forth from the concrete, and Hux crouches to retrieve it and rolls it between his finger and thumb. His screen pings, and another rotating rose appears atop his arm. You can't win if you don't enter, says the message beneath the rose. Next comes a grainy photograph of the squad worker's shirt. Hux zooms in on the worker's tricolor pocket patch. As the next message appears, NASA, it says, with the eye of faith, Hux thinks, considering the image's red slash and white script, maybe. Hux sends a gif of crossing fingers, but his message is quickly returned. The recipient has become unknown. Hux runs a search for moon death sweepstakes as he eases himself back down to the sidewalk. He presses the sequin to his cheek, clicks the link, and enters.
Awesome. I love it. And congratulations. And I look forward to seeing what you come up with for the quarterlies. So thank you so much. Everybody is doing such good readings. I love this. I'm absolutely thrilled that these readers and writers took the time with us to share their work today. If you look in the chat, wherever you're watching from, which would either be Twitch, YouTube, or Facebook, you'll see that I'm sharing the links to these stories so you can go back and read them. But now we have Naching Kassa, and she has Along for the Ride. You ready to read, Naching? So I think you might be frozen. I'm not sure, but I'm going to be quiet so you can read and tell us a little bit about why. Yes. Awesome. All right.
I'm not. I am a wife, a mom, a horror writer, mystery. Okay. I apologize. Okay, so I'm a wife and a mom and a horror writer. And I'm an assistant at Crystal Lake Publishing, and I am a staff writer for the Stillwater Bay fiction series they have on their Patreon. So I'm going to read my story Along for the Ride, and I Hilda had been large, masculine hands she'd never seen. This on the buildings. It took a few moments before she realized ornate neither. She glanced at the and stick gems she used as part of her strip act, glittered under the street lamps. The car passed. Strange that they had chosen this image of her to hide the driver's identity. Silence had filled the car when Hilda stepped into the driver's mind, and the sudden blare of Frank Sinatra's voice singing Fly Me to the Moon made her jump. She wanted to turn it down, but the hands wouldn't obey her. Ms. Clausen, a voice said within her mind. She jumped again. Yes? Please stop resisting the body. As I told you before, you entered the process. You're a passenger, nothing more. Oh, yes, sorry, Dr. Ames. I know you're used to the usual mind patch experience where you control the bodies you enter, but this is different. Do you remember what I told you? All illegal activities are... I remember, Doctor. The other told you? No, I'm afraid I don't. I'm sorry. Resist, the more you'll harm your own brain. You could cause a stroke. I'm sorry, Doctor. I won't resist. When the time comes, I'll allow you to feel everything your driver does. Turned into an alley, and the driver braked to a halt. Sinatra's voice ceased to sing when he pulled the keys from the trunk, and his brass knuckles and blackjacks lay on display beneath the trunk's amber light. The driver paused. Ms. Clausen, Dr. Ames said, he would like to know what weapon you'd like him to use. I want a knife, Hilda said. The biggest one he has. The son of a bitch who killed my mother did it with a knife. The driver chose a large knife with a broad blade and a wooden handle. The driver shoved the knife into a sheath on his belt. He pulled on a pair of gloves, closed the trunk, and headed for the apartment building on the right. The service entrance door swung open on silent hinges. It hadn't been locked. Hilda watched as the driver ascended the dark stairway, making his way to the second floor. He paused before apartment 2B and knocked. If Hilda had been in her own body, she would have been shaking by now. The man who had killed her mother lay just beyond the wooden door. She couldn't wait to see the look on his face. Who is it? A voice called. I'm from maintenance, Mr. Chan, the driver replied in his electronically altered voice. I'm here to fix your sink. It's about time, Chan said. The door opened and a balding man in a white tank top peered out. It's been blocked all morning. The driver, this way, Chan said. The bathroom is here. Hate swelled within Hilda's heart. She wanted to cut him there, strike him down as he had her mother, but the driver wouldn't pull the knife. The bald man led them from the sheath. A thrill raced through Hilda's mind. At last she had him. At last her mother would be avenged. I want to feel it, Dr. Ames, she cried. Let me feel what it's like to bury a blade in his gut. Chan turned when he reached the doorway of the bathroom. When he caught sight of the knife, foremost. When the blade plunged into Chan's belly, Hilda savored the agony she read in his face. The iron scent of blood filled her nostrils, followed by the odor of urine and feces. A warm spray spread over her skin, and the few drops spread across her lips. She tasted the salt on her tongue. Crimson spread over the floor and the walls. The color reminded her of the single red rose left beside her mother's corpse, the calling card of the man she now attacked. A song filled her ears. Fly me to the way among the stars. The bald man fell to the floor, and the driver leaped upon him. The knife cut deep, slicing Chan's cheeks and nose, rendering his face unrecognizable. The driver grew more gleeful, his singing louder. He wouldn't stop. Hilda tried to close her eyes, tried to pull back, but she couldn't. The more she tried, the worse the carnage became. Ms. Clausen, you must stop resisting. We'll have you out in a moment. I don't want to see any more. I don't want to feel it. As though her words had reached him, the driver rose from the body. He stood there panting for several minutes. Then he entered the bathroom. Hilda glimpsed her own bejeweled face in the mirror, only the gems had changed into spots of blood. Slick soap coated her hands. Water warmed them. When the driver reached into his inner pocket and carefully withdrew what lay inside, she felt that too. The thorns pricked her fingers. Her mirror image grinned. So that's the end, and you can find me at Naching Kassa on Twitter. Thank you, Angela.
Nice. Oh, thank you so much. And if it cut out for you a little bit, anybody listening, I did share the link so you can read along. That was awesome. I love the absolutely different stories here. None of these stories are alike, which is amazing because everybody had the same exact prompts and the same time to do them in. So I am super impressed by all of these. Our last reader today will be Alina Maciuca. Did I say that right? Yay!
Exactly.
I am so terrible at names. And Alina is going to be reading A Home to Miss. And yeah, I'm super excited to hear how you came up with your prompts, how you built your story from those different prompts.
So, hi everyone, and thanks for having me here. First of all, I'm new to this game, so I just published my first story in Space and Time, issue 140, and some poetry in Siren's Call. And you can also find me on Spreading the Writer's World with the Ladies of Horror stuff. So, this reading is also something which is new to me, and so wish me luck. That's one thing. And the second is regarding the prompts. Basically, I was intrigued by the combination between the song and the image with the alley, with all the ads going on. There was a lot going on down there, and I wanted to come up with something pulpy a little bit and also noir-ish in a way, because I'm a sucker for noir films. And I also think I did something really, really different from what I usually do, because usually I'm all about dark stuff and dark moods and emotions, but now I wanted something a little bit more dynamic. So it was a little bit of an experiment. You can think it as that. So, okay, here I go now. It's called A Home to Miss. They never had this illusion thing going on back in the good Earth times. The swords Marcus juggled almost reached the ceiling. He kept his hands raised a little bit above his eye level, more for dramatic effect than anything else, I suspected. Thinking you're an asshole who's messing with us makes me feel more at peace than knowing you're a part of this alternative history fad. Why are you even after Mexaro? Infinite availability? How does that sound? This illusion thing used to be free. They put a price on it as soon as common people could exploit it. I used what I had left in the old bank to shift the crystals on my face into a prettier pattern and then replaced it with the one we had just stolen. Ads blinked and jingled in a cacophony that broke your will sooner or later. Marcus and I made a bet over how long I could last without lenses and earplugs. He had the ones that blocked the ads altogether. Crafted by underdog artisans, there was no way he could afford a subscription. He'd maybe get a year or two in a colony, should they catch him, and the prospect left me somewhat hoping. Earth was a lot different than this mess, he said. Yeah. Is this why you're after Mexaro? You believe he made all this from scratch and ruined your fun? I loaded my baby and fondled its steel pipe. Mexaro wore sunglasses and a white brim hat, such a pimp. I couldn't tell how many of his guards were flesh and bone. Too bad for Marcus, who had to get close to the guy. We went in. They said these were genuine musicians who played genuine earth instruments, and that Mexaro only came here to hear them perform. I couldn't tell the difference between a real band or a fake band, but at least I didn't pretend to be a connoisseur. He had stubby little fingers, with dark hair patches on and a narrow forehead. Mexaro had clearly not created anything other than a bunch of new extortion techniques. After a few dances with the ladies, Marcus put on his "We've been married for 15 years and I installed a bank under the bed, which I used to turn you into a 19-year-old nurse thrice a month" guilt face, and gave me the rose. He had either rehearsed this, which was highly possible, or he had indeed been married at some point. Blades flew at everyone's heads, and we had enough in the banks to play make-believe and panic everyone until I got a clear aim. And I pulled the trigger, and we then somehow survived the stampede. Mexaro's guards took everyone down, including the band, who were indeed real and who did play earth instruments. We dangled from the iron beams above all the slaughterhouse cabaret that went on in the hall. Once done with everyone, you wouldn't always have this many casualties, but you'd have to be prepared for it. Mexaro's men pointed their gun towards their own temples and shot. They fell like broken golems of flesh. I'd never seen this trick. We swung a bit more in the air to make sure everyone was toast, and we descended. Funny, we must have looked like saviors. Mexaro's body was a lot smaller and a lot less hairier than I remembered him to be. The face wasn't quite right. I'd never seen this trick either. What now? I swiped the blood off my pumps. We try to hang around and see who comes by to clean this place up, and we try not to get killed or sent to a colony. At least we know some of the cards he holds up his sleeve. How the hell do we find the real Mexaro? We don't. We just need to find out if he commands illusion through space and possibly time. And we'll start from there. We're not going there again, are you? He's on this very planet, rotting in a grotto somewhere, too much of a chicken to stick his head out. We'll find him eventually. What if there's still an Earth to go back to? Have you thought of that? I'd envisioned Earth more like a potential retirement project, someplace quiet we may or may not actually be able to live on again, where weeds gobbled up skyscrapers and wild animals copulated all over the place. But maybe I wasn't the first one who'd think of it this way. So, you think Mexaro's been on Earth all along? I said and positioned my crystals in a more playful pattern. Okay, so that was it. Um, Thanks. I thought maybe it's worth saying that all this, fake news and conspiracy threads going on inspired me a little bit, to create this sort of ambiguous dialogue between two characters that actually had the same goal, but two different worldviews.
I love it. I love it. This has been so wonderful. Thank you so much for all of you for being here, for reading this. I know a lot of people had to juggle schedules to get here. Thank you. I am very selfishly enjoying every minute of this. If you would like to participate again, we have another Iron Writers right now. And I have been terrible at sharing this because we've been doing other things. So we're actually extending the deadline for that. If you guys want to enter again, and anybody is welcome to enter. There's 4 new prompts up, and I will share that in the chat. But until then, thank you so much, all of you, all 5 of you, and everyone who participated in the Iron Writers. This was awesome. You guys are amazing. So thank you. Applause for everybody. So, and that ends our show for today. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks.
And I'm looking for my buttons. There we go. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Angela.